When Francesca saw the boy struggling with his broken bike and decided to help, she had no idea she was being watched by the richest man in the city. What started as a simple act of kindness would turn into a love story no one expected. The afternoon sun fell gently on Willow Creek Park as Francesca Davies finished her shift as a nurse at Community General Hospital. At 28, she had learned that small moments of peace were treasures to be cherished. She walked along the main park path, breathing in the fresh air after 12 exhausting hours of caring for patients, when she heard a sound that broke her heart. Behind a large tree, a boy of about 8 was sitting on the ground with tears streaming down his dirty cheeks. A red bicycle that had seen better days lay beside him. The chain was broken, the handlebars were twisted, and one of the wheels looked like it was about to fall off completely. "Are you okay, little one?" Francesca asked, approaching slowly so as not to startle him. The boy looked up, revealing huge brown eyes filled with sadness. "My bike broke," he mumbled, pointing at the wrecked vehicle. "It was my big brother's before he went to heaven. Now I don't know how I'm going to get home." Francesca felt a pang in her heart. She recognized that look of loss, that premature resignation that some children develop when life hits them too hard, too soon. She knelt beside him, not caring that her white uniform would get dirty with the park's soil. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Tommy," the boy replied, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. "Tommy Williams, and you're very pretty, like the angels my grandma says watch over my brother." "Thank you, Tommy. I'm Francesca, and I think I can help you with your bike." The boy's eyes lit up for the first time. "Seriously? You know how to fix bikes?" Francesca smiled, remembering the afternoon she had spent in her dad's workshop when she was little, before he also went to heaven, as Tommy would say. "I know a few things. Can I take a look?" While Francesca examined the bike, noticing the damage was more severe than she had initially thought, she didn't realize she was being watched from a distance. In the park's parking lot, inside a brand new black BMW, a man was looking at her with an expression he hadn't shown in years. Genuine curiosity mixed with something he couldn't identify. Alexander Vance had come to the park by chance. At 35, he was the heir to the country's largest financial empire, a man accustomed to everyone knowing his name and his fortune. He had stopped there because he had an important call to make, and the park offered him a tranquility that his office on the 40th floor of the city's tallest building hadn't provided lately. But instead of making the call, he found himself watching a woman who clearly had no idea who he was, completely focused on helping an unknown child. It was something he hadn't seen in years. Selfless kindness, with no cameras, no audience, no personal gain. Tommy overheard the woman say, "We can fix the chain, but we'll need some tools. Do you live far from here?" "About 20 blocks, the boy replied. "But it's okay. I can walk. I'm used to it." 20 blocks is a long way for a child, Francesca mumbled, thinking. "Hey, how about we go to a bike shop? I'll go with you and we can see if they can fix it quickly." "I don't have any money," Tommy admitted, hanging his head in shame. "Grandma says this month is really tough. We barely have enough for food." Alexander saw the woman's expression soften even more, if that were possible. He watched as she made a decision without hesitation, without calculation, without considering the implications for herself. "Don't you worry about the money," Francesca said to the boy. "I'll take care of it. Come on." Tommy jumped for joy. "But why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." "Because everyone needs help sometimes. And when we can help someone else, we should. It's as simple as that." Alexander felt something strange stirring in his chest. It wasn't the first time he had seen acts of charity. He had donated millions to various charitable causes over the years, but it had always been calculated, strategic, with tax benefits and public image in mind. This was different. This was pure. Without thinking too much, he got out of his car and walked toward them. His custom-made Italian shoes made no sound on the grass as he approached. "Excuse me," he said in a soft voice, causing both Francesca and Tommy to turn. Francesca looked at him and immediately noticed that this man was different from anyone who frequented the park. His suit was clearly expensive. His watch probably cost more than her annual salary, and there was something in his posture that screamed power and money. But what surprised her most were his eyes. They were intelligent, intense, but there was also something vulnerable in them. "Do you need some help?" Alexander asked, looking at the broken bike. "We're fine, thank you," Francesca replied automatically, with the natural caution of a woman accustomed to handling difficult situations alone. "Wait," Tommy interrupted, looking at Alexander with curiosity. "Do you know about bikes?" Alexander smiled genuinely for the first time in months. "I know a few things. In fact, I know the best bike shop in the city. It's only 2 blocks from here." "That would be great," Tommy said, looking between Francesca and Alexander. "Right, Miss Francesca." Francesca studied Alexander for a moment. There was something about him she couldn't decipher, but her gut told her he wasn't a threat. Besides, Tommy needed help, and if this man knew a nearby place, it would be perfect. "Okay," she finally agreed. "Could we take the bike there?" "Of course," Alexander replied. "In fact, I can put it in my car if you'd like." When he pointed to his BMW, Francesca realized he was definitely not an ordinary person. But Tommy was already excited about the prospect of getting his precious bike fixed, so she decided to accept the help. "What's your name?" she asked, as they walked to the car. "Alexander," he replied, deciding to omit his last name for the first time in years. "And you?" "Francesca Davies, and this is Tommy. A pleasure to meet you." As Alexander carefully placed the bike in the trunk of his car, Francesca noticed the curious glances of other people in the park. It was obvious they were drawing attention. A nurse in uniform, a boy in humble but clean clothes, and a billionaire in a car that cost more than a house. "What do you do for a living, Alexander?" Francesca asked as they drove to the shop. "Business," he replied vaguely. "And you?" "I'm a nurse at the Community General Hospital." "That must be very rewarding work," Alexander commented, and Francesca was surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "It is. Exhausting. Sometimes frustrating. Underpaid. But yes, it's rewarding." "And your business?" "Also exhausting. Sometimes frustrating," Alexander replied with an ironic smile. "But definitely well paid." Tommy, who had been listening from the back seat, asked, "Mr. Alexander, are you rich?" "Tommy," Francesca scolded softly, "you don't ask those kinds of questions." "Don't worry," Alexander laughed. "Yes, Tommy, I have money, a lot of money. Enough to buy 1,000 bikes, probably." "Wow," Tommy exclaimed. "Then why are you helping us? Don't you have rich people things to do?" Alexander looked in the rear-view mirror at the boy, then at Francesca, who was waiting for his answer with curiosity. "Why," he finally said, "it's been a long time since I've seen something as beautiful as what I saw in the park today." "What did you see?" Francesca asked. "I saw one person help another without expecting anything in return, and I realized I had forgotten that still existed in the world." The silence that followed was not awkward, but reflective. Francesca looked at this mysterious man and wondered what kind of life he must have led for a simple act of kindness to seem so extraordinary. When they arrived at the bike shop, Alexander not only paid for the repairs, but he insisted on a complete overhaul of the bike. New tires, new brakes, and even a new bell that made Tommy shout for joy. "You can't do all this," Francesca protested. "It's too much." "It's nothing to me," Alexander replied. "To him, it's everything." And seeing the look of absolute happiness on Tommy's face as the mechanic worked on his bike, Francesca realized that Alexander was right. What none of the three knew at that moment was that this chance encounter in a park would change the course of their lives forever. 3 days after the park encounter, Alexander couldn't get the image of Francesca out of his mind. She was kneeling by the broken bike, completely focused on helping an unknown child. For years, he had been surrounded by people who calculated every move, every word, every gesture based on what they could gain. Seeing that pure kindness had affected him in a way he didn't know how to process. He was in his office on the 40th floor, looking out the window at the city sprawling below him, when his assistant, Richard, came in with the day's reports. "Mr. Vance, you have the meeting with the Japanese investors in an hour, then the real estate project presentation, and at 5 the board meeting." "Richard," Alexander interrupted, "do you know Community General Hospital?" His assistant blinked, confused by the change of subject. "The public hospital downtown?" "Yes, sir." "Why do you ask?" "What's the financial situation there?" "Well, like all public hospitals, they're always in need of more resources. In fact, I think they're in a particularly difficult situation this year." Are you considering a donation? Alexander thought for a moment. Find out everything you can about that hospital. I want to know what they need, what their main problems are, how their staff is doing. Any specific area you're interested in? The nursing department. Meanwhile, at Community General Hospital, Francesca was finishing another double shift. The staff shortage meant that nurses like her frequently worked 16-hour shifts, running from one patient to another, juggling responsibilities that should be shared by more people. Francesca, her supervisor, Dr. Carmen Ruiz, called out, I need you to stay 2 more hours. Maria got sick, and we don't have anyone to cover the night shift. Francesca felt the fatigue weighing on her shoulders like a damp blanket. Of course, doctor. No problem. But there was a problem. She had been working double shifts for 3 days straight. Her feet hurt so much she could barely walk, and she had cancelled her last 2 dates with her younger sister, Lucy, who lived on the other side of town and rarely had free time. After 18 hours at the hospital, Francesca finally managed to leave. It was 11 p.m. when she arrived at her small, 1-bedroom apartment. It was modest but cozy, filled with plants she had managed to keep alive despite her impossible hours, and medical books she studied in her free time, hoping to one day specialize. She was preparing a late dinner when her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, she answered, thinking it was probably the hospital asking her to come back for an emergency. Excuse me. Is this Francesca Davies? The voice was familiar, but she couldn't place it. Yes, this is she. Who is this? It's Alexander. We met 3 days ago in the park when you helped Tommy with his bike. Francesca froze, the fork halfway to her mouth. How did you get my number? I'm sorry, I know it's strange. I asked Tommy for his neighborhood. I found his grandmother, and she gave me your information. I wanted to make sure the boy was okay. You went to his house? Francesca asked, both impressed and concerned. Yes, I brought some groceries for the family. Tommy told me more about their situation. Francesca sat down on her small sofa, processing this information. What kind of groceries? Food, mostly, and some toys for Tommy. His grandmother told me you had been helping them too, that you had given them money for medicine. It wasn't much, Francesca murmured, feeling exposed. It was just what I could spare. It was more than most people would have done, Alexander replied. Can I ask you something? I guess. Why do you help people you don't know? Francesca was silent for a moment, thinking about how to answer that question. Why wouldn't I? Most people don't. Maybe most people haven't been in a position where they desperately needed help. You have been in that position? Many times, Francesca admitted. When I was a little girl, after my dad died. When I was studying nursing and working 3 jobs to pay for college. When my sister was sick and needed expensive medicine. I know what it feels like to be desperate and have someone help you without expecting anything in return. Alexander felt something stir in his chest again. And is your family okay now? My sister is. She's studying engineering. She's very smart. Our parents died when we were little, so I basically raised her. It must have been very difficult. It was what I had to do, Francesca replied simply. Why are you really calling me, Alexander? Alexander was silent for a moment. He had been asking himself the same thing since he dialed her number. Honestly, I'm not sure. I can't stop thinking about what I saw in the park, about how you helped Tommy, about how you looked when you did it. How did I look? Like it was the most natural thing in the world. As if helping others was as automatic as breathing. You should try it, Francesca said softly. For most of us, it's not. For you, it's not, Alexander thought, thinking of all the times he had walked past people in need without even noticing them, of all the donations he had made for tax benefits instead of genuine compassion. No, for me it's not, but I'd like it to be. What do you do for a living, Alexander? Francesca asked, curious to learn more about this mysterious man who had appeared in her life. I run a company, he replied vaguely. What kind of company? Investments, real estate development, a few other things. Sounds important. Sounds boring, Alexander corrected himself. Do you like being a nurse? Most of the time it's exhausting, stressful, underpaid, but yes, I like it. I like feeling like I'm making a difference, even if it's small. A small difference? Well, I'm not curing cancer or saving the world. I'm just taking care of patients one at a time. That sounds like saving the world to the people you care for. Francesca smiled for the first time in days. I guess I never thought of it that way. Francesca, would you like to have dinner with me tomorrow? If you're enjoying this story, why not like and subscribe? Your support helps me create more content like this for you. The question took her completely by surprise. Dinner? Yes, like a date. A date? Unless you don't want to. I just thought, well, I'd like to get to know you better. Francesca looked around her apartment, at her dirty uniform lying on the floor, at the pile of bills on the kitchen table. Alexander, I don't know if that's a good idea. Why not? Because we clearly come from very different worlds, and that matters. Usually it does, but I don't know. There's something about you that makes me curious. Like what? Like the fact that a clearly rich and powerful man would take the time to help a child he doesn't know. Like the fact that you sound genuinely interested in the answers to your questions. Like the fact that you're calling me to ask why I help others, as if it were something extraordinary instead of normal. To me, it is extraordinary. That tells me a lot about the world you live in. Will you have dinner with me? Francesca closed her eyes, knowing she was probably making an unwise decision. Okay, but somewhere simple. I'm not used to fancy places. I know the perfect place. I can pick you up at 7. I can meet you wherever. No, please, let me pick you up. It's the least I can do. After hanging up, Francesca sat on her sofa, wondering what she had just agreed to do. She hadn't dated anyone in over a year. She simply didn't have the time or energy for relationships. And she had definitely never dated anyone like Alexander, someone who clearly had money and power. But there was something in his voice, a sincerity she hadn't heard in a long time, that had convinced her. The next day, Alexander found himself doing something he hadn't done in years, asking Richard about simple, cozy restaurants instead of the exclusive places where he usually dined with clients and business partners. Simple places? Richard asked, confused. Yes, places where normal people go for dinner. Normal people? Richard, you're a normal person. Where would you take a woman you wanted to impress with your personality instead of your bank account? Richard thought for a moment. Well, there's a small Italian restaurant downtown, Bella's Trattoria. The food is excellent, the atmosphere is warm, the prices are reasonable. My wife and I go there for our anniversaries. Perfect. Make a reservation for tonight. For how many people? 2. And the name for the reservation? Alexander hesitated. Just Alexander. That afternoon, while getting ready for the date, Alexander looked in the mirror and realized he was nervous in a way he hadn't experienced since high school. He had been on many dates over the years, but they had all been calculated, part of his public image or business connections disguised as romance. This was different. This was real. When he arrived at Francesca's apartment, he stood in front of the building for a moment, taking note of the working-class neighborhood, the children playing in the street, the real life unfolding around him. It was a world completely different from his own, but for the first time in years, he felt more alive than at any business meeting. Francesca came down wearing a simple but elegant blue dress, and when she smiled at the sight of him, Alexander knew that something fundamental in him would change tonight. Ready? He asked, offering her his arm. Ready, she replied, though her heart was beating so fast she was sure he could hear it. Neither of them knew that this dinner would be the beginning of something that would transform not only their lives, but the lives of everyone around them. Bella's Trattoria was exactly what Francesca had expected. Cozy, filled with families dining, with soft Italian music in the background, and the scent of garlic and basil wafting through the air. What she hadn't expected was how natural it would feel to walk alongside Alexander, as if they had done this many times before. How did you find this place? Francesca asked, as the waiter led them to a table by the window. My assistant recommended it, Alexander admitted. I told him I wanted something authentic, not fancy. You don't like fancy places. I like them for business, but for this. He paused, looking directly into her eyes. I wanted something real. Francesca felt a warmth spread through her chest. And this is real for you? It's the most real I've felt in years. The waiter, an older man with a thick Italian accent, approached with a warm smile. Good evening. Welcome to Bella's Trattoria. I'm Giuseppe, the owner. Is this your first time visiting us? Yes, Alexander replied. It came highly recommended. Excellent. Let me suggest our specials for today. We have osso buco, which has been cooking for 6 hours, and my wife, Bella, personally prepared the ricotta and spinach ravioli. Francesca looked at the menu, noticing the prices were reasonable, but not cheap for her budget. Alexander, as if he had read her mind, said, "Please, order whatever you want. It's my treat." "You don't need to do that," Francesca murmured. "I know, but I want to." For the first hour of dinner, they talked about superficial things, the food, the weather, funny anecdotes from work, but gradually the conversation grew deeper. "Did you always want to be a nurse?" Alexander asked as they shared a bruschetta appetizer. "Since I was 12, Francesca replied. "My little sister Lucy got seriously ill. Pneumonia that became complicated. We spent weeks in the hospital, and there was a nurse, Carmen, who not only took care of Lucy, but also took care of me. She would bring me sandwiches when I forgot to eat. She would let me sleep in the chair next to my sister's bed. She explained what the doctors were doing, so I wouldn't be so scared." "What happened to your parents?" "They had died 2 years earlier in a car accident. Lucy and I were living with our aunt, but she worked 2 jobs and couldn't be at the hospital all the time." Alexander felt a pressure in his chest, imagining a 12-year-old girl alone in a hospital, caring for her younger sister. It must have been terrifying. It was. But Carmen taught me that even in the most terrifying moments, there's always something you can do to help, even if it's just holding someone's hand, or bringing them a glass of water, or listening to them when they're scared. That's why I became a nurse. That, and because I realized I wanted to do for others what Carmen was for me. I wanted to be the person who makes people feel less alone in their worst moments. Alexander took a sip of his wine, processing her words. "You know, you're extraordinary." Francesca laughed softly. "I'm not extraordinary. I'm just someone who had good examples. Most people who have bad experiences become bitter. You became more compassionate." "What about you?" Francesca asked, changing the subject. "Did you always want to be in business?" Alexander paused for a long time, carefully cutting his ossobuco. "Honestly, I never had a choice. My family has been in business for generations. The Vances have been building empires for over 100 years. Since I was a child, it was assumed I would continue the family legacy. But is it what you wanted to do? I never asked myself what I wanted to do. I just knew what was expected of me. And what was expected? To be successful, to make money, to expand the company, to marry someone appropriate from our social class, to have children who would continue the tradition. My father enrolled me in the best schools, sent me to Harvard for my MBA, introduced me to the right contacts." "Sounds lonely." "It is," Alexander admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. "Very lonely. Imagine growing up in a 20-room mansion where the only conversation at dinner was business reports and investment strategies. Your parents never asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up." "My father died when I was 25. A stress-induced heart attack. My mother, well, she lives in a different reality. For her, success is measured solely in terms of money and social status." Francesca noticed the sadness in his eyes. "You've never been in love?" "I thought I was once." Her name was Isabella Montgomery. She came from a family similar to mine. We had been introduced by our parents in our late 20s. She was beautiful, intelligent. She knew everything about art and culture. She seemed perfect. What happened? We were engaged for a year. We planned the perfect wedding, the perfect honeymoon, the perfect life. But one night, a few days before the wedding, I overheard her talking on the phone with a friend. She was saying that it didn't matter if she loved me or not. What mattered was that our union would consolidate her family's fortune. And you? I canceled the wedding. It was the social scandal of the year. My mother didn't speak to me for months. Isabella sued me for emotional damages. Do you regret it? No, but it taught me that in my world it's very difficult to know if someone loves you for who you are or for what you have. And now I'm having dinner with an extraordinary woman who helps unknown children and who became a nurse to make people feel less alone. And for the first time in years, I don't feel lonely." Francesca felt her heart race. "Alexander, I'm sorry, I was too direct. It's just that I'm not used to actually having a conversation with someone. Usually my conversations are about numbers, contracts, strategies. This is different. Different how? Different as in what you think matters, what you feel matters, who you are as a person matters. It matters more than any business I've ever done." Giuseppe came back to ask about dessert. "Would you like to try our tiramisu? It's Bella's secret recipe from her nonna in Sicily." "Sounds perfect," Francesca said. Could we share one portion? Of course, Bella, and I'll bring you some complimentary limoncello. While they waited for dessert, Alexander leaned forward. Can I ask you a personal question? I guess that's fair, considering everything you've told me. Why did you agree to have dinner with me? I'm practically a stranger. I clearly come from a different world than yours. Francesca thought for a moment. Honestly, I almost didn't accept. After we hung up last night, I stayed up very late, wondering if I was making a mistake. And I realized that it had been a long time since I had met anyone who made me curious. Most of the men I meet are at the hospital, and the conversations always end up being about work, or they're friends of friends who just want to have a good time. And you make me curious. I do? Yes. There's something about you I can't figure out. Like when you helped Tommy. You didn't have to. You clearly didn't need anything from us, but you did it in a way that felt genuine. And now I'm even more curious. Because you're different than I expected. Different how? I expected you to be arrogant, condescending, to treat me like a temporary amusement. But you actually listen when I talk. You ask questions as if the answers really matter to you. They do matter. Why? Because when I look at you, I see something I've been looking for my whole life without knowing it. What do you see? Authenticity, purpose, inner peace, everything I don't have. The tiramisu arrived, and they both fell silent for a moment, processing the intensity of the conversation. Francesca, Alexander said finally. Yes? What if this worked out between us? I mean, our worlds are so different. I don't know, Alexander admitted, but I'd like to find out. Aren't you worried about what your family, your friends would think? My family hasn't been involved in my personal decisions since I canceled my first wedding. And my friends, well, most of them are business contacts. Real friends are something I don't have much of either. That's sad. It is. But it's the life I've led. What about you? What would your family think if they knew you were having dinner with a billionaire? Francesca laughed. Lucy would think I'm crazy. She's very practical. She's always telling me I need to be more careful with men, and she's right, usually. But there's something about you that feels safe. Safe? As if I wouldn't intentionally hurt you? As if I genuinely cared about what happens to me? I care, Alexander said seriously. More than I should care after one dinner. After they finished dessert and limoncello, they walked slowly back to Alexander's car. The night was cool, and the streets were quiet. Can I ask you a personal question? Francesca said as they headed towards her apartment. Of course. Anything. Exactly how rich are you? Alexander laughed. Why do you ask? Because all night I've been trying to figure out why someone with clearly considerable money would want to spend time with me. Do you think I'm just looking for fun with someone from a different social class? I don't know what to think. Alexander stopped the car in front of Francesca's building and turned to look at her. Francesca, to answer your question, yes, I have a lot of money, more than I could ever spend. But in all my years of having that money, I've never met anyone who made me want to be a better person just by being around them. That's what I do. When I saw you helping Tommy, when I heard you talk tonight about why you became a nurse, when I see how your eyes light up, when you talk about helping others. Yes, you make me want to be better. Better as in more real, less focused on things that don't really matter, more aware of the people around me and how I can help. You want to help? I had never thought about it before. But yes, after meeting you, I do want to help. Francesca stared at him. You know what's the strangest thing about all this? What? That you say I make you want to be better, but you're making me realize things about myself I didn't know. Like what? Like maybe I deserve something good in my life. Like maybe I don't have to carry everything by myself all the time. Like maybe it's okay to let someone take care of me once in a while. Would you like me to take care of you? I don't know if I know how to let someone take care of me. I've been taking care of others since I was a little girl. We could learn together, Alexander suggested. You teach me how to be more authentic. I'll learn how to take care of you. What if it doesn't work out? What if it does? Francesca smiled. That's a very optimistic answer. I'm not usually optimistic, but you're changing me. Can I ask you something else? Anything you want. What's going to happen tomorrow? Will you go back to your world of business and meetings, and this will just be a pleasant memory? Tomorrow, I'm going to cancel my first meeting, and I'm going to ask you if you want to have lunch with me. And the day after tomorrow, I'm going to ask you if you want to have dinner again. And the day after that. The day after that, I'm going to keep asking you if you want to spend time with me until you say yes forever, or until you say no and break my heart. Alexander, I know this is fast. I know we've just met, but I also know that I've never felt this way before, and I don't want to let it go. Felt what? Hope. Purpose. Like I've finally found something that's worth more than all the money in the world. Francesca was silent for a moment, looking at this man who had appeared in her life out of nowhere and was telling her things she never thought she would hear. You know what? She finally said. What? I think I'd like to find out what happens if this works out. Seriously? Seriously. But let's take things slow. I want to get to know the real Alexander, not just the successful businessman. The real Alexander is far less impressive than the businessman. Let me be the judge of that. When Francesca got out of the car, Alexander walked her to the door of her building. Thank you for tonight, she said. It was perfect. Can I call you tomorrow? I hope you do. Francesca? Yes. Be careful going to work tomorrow. And if you need anything at all, call me. Why would I do that? Because now there's someone in this world who cares about what happens to you. And that someone is me. As Alexander drove away, Francesca stood at the entrance of her building, touching her lips where he had planted a farewell kiss, wondering if she had started something wonderful or if she was about to complicate her life in ways she couldn't imagine. But for the first time in years, she didn't care that she didn't have all the answers, because for the first time in years, she felt alive. 1 week after their first date, Francesca found herself living a routine she had never imagined possible. Every morning, Alexander would call her before she went into the hospital, not to talk about business or impress her with his wealth, but simply to hear her voice and wish her a good day. Every afternoon, he would show up at the hospital with coffee and some small gift, wildflowers, a book he thought she would like, or simply his presence when she had a 15-minute break. The nurses are starting to gossip, her friend and colleague Martha told her as they changed at the end of another exhausting shift. They say you have a very generous secret admirer. He's not a secret, Martha, Francesca replied, hanging her uniform in her locker. And it's not as complicated as they think. A man who shows up in a different BMW every day isn't complicated. Martha raised an eyebrow. Francesca, I've seen 3 different cars this week. How many does he have? I don't know, Francesca admitted. And honestly, I don't care. You don't care? Do you even know what he does specifically? Francesca paused. It was true that Alexander had been vague about the details of his work. She knew he had a company, that he was successful, that he had a lot of money, but nothing specific. Investments, she finally replied. Investments in what? I haven't asked. Martha looked at her as if she had lost her mind. Francesca, you've been dating this man for a week, and you don't know what he does for a living? Doesn't that seem strange to you? It seems to me that when we're together, we talk about things that matter more than work. Like what? Like our dreams, our fears. What makes us happy? Like the fact that he had never seen a sunset from a public park until I showed him yesterday. Like the fact that I had never tried Indian food until he took me to dinner the day before yesterday. Sounds romantic, Martha conceded. But it also sounds too good to be true. Why does everyone think that if something is good, it has to be fake? Because it usually is. Especially when it involves men with a lot of money and working women like us. Francesca was about to respond when her phone rang. Alexander? Ready to go? His warm voice asked on the other end of the line. Ready? Where are you? In the parking lot as usual. I'll be right down. After hanging up, Martha looked at her seriously. Just be careful. I will. I don't want to see you get hurt. I will, Francesca promised. Although in her heart she felt that Alexander was the first person in years who would never intentionally hurt her. When she went down to the parking lot, she found Alexander leaning against a navy blue BMW she hadn't seen before. He was wearing jeans and a simple white shirt, no tie, with the sleeves rolled up. It was the first time she had seen him dressed so casually, and he looked even more attractive than in a suit. New car? She asked, walking up to give him a kiss on the cheek. Something that had started to feel natural after only a week. It's from my collection, Alexander replied, opening the door for her. I thought you'd like it. This one is more discreet than the Mercedes. Your collection? I have a few cars, he admitted, and Francesca could see a slight blush on his cheeks. It's a kind of hobby. How many is a few? Does it matter? I'm just curious about the man I'm dating. Alexander paused as if making an important decision. 12, he finally said. 12 cars? Yes. Francesca was silent for a moment, processing this information. 12 cars was more than most people could afford in a lifetime. Does that bother you? Alexander asked, noticing her silence. It doesn't bother me, Francesca replied slowly, but it makes me realize how different our lives are. Different how? Alexander, I take the bus to work. I have a car, but it's 15 years old and sometimes it doesn't start. 12 cars is incomprehensible to me. Do you think I'm frivolous? No. I just think we live in very different realities. And does that matter? I don't know, Francesca admitted. I guess it depends on whether those differences are going to create problems between us. What kind of problems? Like the fact that you probably spend more on gas a month than I earn, Francesca. Or like the fact that when you took me to dinner last night, the wine you ordered probably cost more than my weekly grocery bill. Alexander stopped the car at a traffic light and looked at her. That made you feel uncomfortable? A little, she admitted. Not because I didn't appreciate the gesture, but because it made me aware that for you, spending money is as natural as breathing. And for me, every dollar counts. Do you want me to stop taking you to nice places? No, that's not what I'm saying. I just need you to understand that when you spend so much money on me, I feel like I can't reciprocate in the same way. I don't expect you to reciprocate financially, but I do want to be able to. I want to be able to take you to dinner, take you to places I like, give you gifts that mean something. Alexander drove in silence for a moment, thinking, you know what? You're right. I've been so used to money solving everything that I didn't realize I was putting you in an uncomfortable position. Alexander, I'm not asking you to change your life, but you are asking me to be more aware of how my actions affect you, and that's fair. They arrived at the small park where they had met, and Alexander parked under the same tree where they had found Tommy with his broken bike. Can I suggest something? Francesca said, as they walked to the same bench where they had sat that first afternoon. Of course. What? How about for a while we do things that don't cost a lot of money, things we can both afford and enjoy equally? Like what? Like this. Francesca gestured to the park around them. Walking, talking, watching sunsets. Like cooking together at my apartment instead of going to expensive restaurants. Like going to the neighborhood movie theater instead of a premium one. Wouldn't you get bored doing such simple things, Alexander? The most interesting conversations I've had in years have been with you in places like this. You don't need to spend money on me to make me feel special. What do you need to feel special? Your time, your attention, your honesty. The fact that when you're with me, I feel like I'm the only person in your world. You are the only person in my world, Alexander said seriously. What do you mean? I mean that in 1 week, you've changed everything for me. Before I met you, my life was work, more work, meetings, contracts, numbers. It was successful, but empty. And now I wake up excited because I'm going to see you. I cancel meetings so I can bring you coffee. I stay up late planning things we could do together. For the first time in my life, there's something more important than work. Francesca felt her heart race. Alexander, I know this is intense. I know it's only been a week. But I can't pretend that what I feel for you is casual. What do you feel for me? I'm falling in love with you, she admitted. More than that, I think I'm already in love. The silence that followed was long, but not awkward. Francesca looked at this man who had appeared in her life like a hurricane, transforming her predictable routine into something full of possibilities. I'm falling in love with you too, she finally said, and that terrifies me. Why does it terrify you? Because I don't know how this works. I don't know how a public hospital nurse can build a life with someone who has 12 cars. Do you want to build a life with me? I want to try, but I need you to be completely honest with me about who you are and what you do. Alexander took her hands. What do you want to know? Everything. I want to know exactly how rich you are, what kind of company you have, what your life means outside of these moments we spend together. Are you sure? Because once you know everything, I won't be able to protect you from the complications that come with it. What kind of complications? The kind of complications that come with dating one of the richest men in the country. Francesca felt like she had been punched in the stomach. One of the richest in the country? Yes. How rich exactly? Alexander sighed deeply. My family has a fortune estimated at around 2 billion. 2 billion? Francesca stood up, starting to pace back and forth. With a B? Yes. And what exactly do you do? I run Vance Industries. We have investments in real estate, technology, energy, manufacturing. We employ over 50,000 people in 15 countries. Vance Industries? Francesca stopped. You're Alexander Vance? Yes. The Alexander Vance who's in business magazines, the one who was named Entrepreneur of the Year last year. That's me. Francesca sat down heavily on the bench. Oh my God. Are you okay? No, I'm not okay. Alexander, you're famous. You're one of those people who's in the news and that changes something. It changes everything, Francesca exclaimed. Do you have any idea what this means? It means I have money. You already knew that. No. It means you live in a world completely different from mine. It means there are probably photographers following you. It means your private life is public news. It means you need time to process this, Alexander said gently. Yes, I need time. Do you want me to take you home? No. I want to walk. I need to think. Francesca, what about this? Does this change what you feel for me? Francesca looked at him, seeing the man who had made her laugh until her stomach hurt 2 nights ago, who had listened patiently while she told him about her most difficult day at the hospital, who had held her hand while they watched the stars from the roof of her building. No, she finally said. What I feel for you doesn't change, but everything else does. Can we talk tomorrow? Yes, we can talk tomorrow. As Francesca walked towards her apartment, her mind raced with the implications of what she had just discovered. She wasn't just falling in love with a rich man. She was falling in love with one of the most powerful and influential people in the country. Her phone rang when she got to her building. It was Lucy, her sister. Francesca, are you okay? You sound strange. Lucy, can you come to my apartment? I need to tell you something. Are you in trouble? I don't know. Maybe. Just come. Okay. An hour later, Lucy was sitting on Francesca's sofa, wide-eyed as she told her the whole story. You're telling me you've been dating Alexander Vance and you didn't know it. He didn't tell me his full last name. You didn't Google him? Why would I have done that? Because everyone Googles the people they're dating? Well, I didn't. Lucy was silent for a moment, processing. Francesca, do you know what this means? It means I'm probably in a very complicated situation. It means you're dating one of the most eligible bachelors in the country. It means there are women who would kill to be in your position. And that's supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you realize that this man, who could be with any woman in the world, chose you. But why? Maybe because you're extraordinary and he sees it. Or maybe because I'm a novelty. The poor nurse who makes him feel good about himself. Do you really believe that? Francesca thought about the way Alexander looked at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. She thought about the conversations they had had, the vulnerability he had shown, the way he had changed in just 1 week. No, she admitted. I don't believe that. I think what we have is real. Then what's the problem? The problem is that I don't know if I can handle everything that comes with being the girlfriend of someone like him. Like what? Like the media attention. Like meeting his family, who will probably think I'm not good enough for him. Like attending events where my nicest dress probably costs less than other women's shoes. Francesca, has he ever made you feel like you're not good enough? No, never. Has he ever treated you badly? Quite the opposite. Does he make you happy? Happier than I've been in years. Then maybe you should stop inventing problems that don't exist yet and focus on the fact that you've found someone who loves you. You think he loves me? Francesca, he cancelled meetings to bring you coffee. If that's not love, it's the closest thing I've ever seen. That night, Francesca stayed up very late, staring at the ceiling and thinking about everything that had changed in just 2 weeks. She had gone from being a single nurse with a predictable life to being in love with one of the most powerful men in the country. It was terrifying, exciting, overwhelming, and perfect, all at the same time. And for the first time in her life, she didn't know what was going to happen next, but she knew she wanted to find out with Alexander. 3 days had passed since the revelation in the park, and Francesca had not answered any of Alexander's calls or messages. Every time she saw his name on her phone screen, she felt a mix of excitement and panic that paralyzed her. She knew she was being a coward, but she needed time to process the magnitude of what she had discovered. It was Thursday morning when everything changed. "Francesca!" Martha's urgent voice echoed throughout the hospital floor. "Come quick, there's an emergency." Francesca ran to the emergency room, expecting to find a patient in critical condition. Instead, she was met with a scene that left her breathless. Alexander was on a gurney, unconscious, with blood on his head and his shirt torn. "What happened?" she asked, running to him. All her confusion and fear from the past few days evaporated instantly. "Car accident," the paramedic who had brought him in replied. "His car was hit by a truck that ran a red light. He has a concussion, some broken ribs, and multiple lacerations. But he's going to be okay." Francesca felt the world tilt around her. Seeing Alexander like this, vulnerable and defenseless, made her realize something she had been denying for the past 3 days. She loved him. No matter how much money he had, no matter how complicated their situation was, she loved him with an intensity that scared her. "Are you a family member?" Dr. Garcia asked, approaching with the medical chart. "No, but," Francesca stammered, realizing that technically she had no right to be there or to receive information about his condition. At that moment, Alexander slowly opened his eyes, looking around confusedly until his gaze met hers. "Francesca," he murmured, trying to sit up. "Don't move," she said gently, putting her hand on his shoulder. "You were in an accident." "You're here? I thought you didn't want to see me anymore." Francesca felt tears forming in her eyes. "Don't be ridiculous. Of course I want to see you." Dr. Garcia observed the interaction between them and made a decision. "Miss, you can stay with him. He needs to rest, but he also needs someone to watch him for the next few hours because of the concussion." "Yes," Francesca replied without hesitation. "I'll stay." The next 4 hours were the longest of Francesca's life. She stayed by Alexander's bedside, monitoring his vital signs, waking him up every hour to make sure the concussion wasn't getting worse, and dealing with a constant procession of people who came to the hospital asking for him. First came Richard, his assistant, with a tablet full of urgent documents that needed Alexander's attention. "Mr. Vance, the Japanese investors are waiting for your response on the Tokyo project," Richard said, not even noticing Francesca until she stepped between him and the bed. "He's resting," she said firmly. "Business can wait." "Excuse me, who are you?" "I'm his nurse," she replied. It wasn't technically a lie. "And I'm telling you he can't have business visits right now. But it's very important." "Not more important than his health," Francesca interrupted, and there was something in her tone that made Richard back down. Alexander, who had been listening with his eyes closed, smiled slightly. "Listen to her, Richard. Cancel everything for today." "Everything, sir?" "Everything." After Richard left, an elegant woman in her 60s arrived, dressed in a Chanel suit and carrying a purse that probably cost more than Francesca's monthly salary. She had the same eye color as Alexander and a posture that screamed money and power. "Where is my son?" she asked, heading directly to the nurse's desk. Francesca knew immediately who she was. This had to be Alexander's mother. "Mrs. Vance?" Francesca approached. "I'm Francesca Davies, the nurse who is caring for Alexander. He's fine. He just needs to rest." The woman looked her up and down, and Francesca could see the exact moment she registered her hospital uniform, her simple appearance, and the lack of any sign of wealth or status. "You are caring for my son?" "Yes, ma'am." "Are you a doctor?" "No, I'm a nurse." "I see. Well, now that I'm here, we no longer need your services. I will hire private nurses." "Ma'am, with all due respect, Alexander asked me to stay." "My son asked you to stay?" The surprise and disdain were evident in her voice. "Yes, ma'am." At that moment, Alexander spoke from the bed. "Mom, Alexander, son, are you okay? I came as soon as I heard." "I'm fine, Mom. Francesca is taking very good care of me." "Francesca?" His mother looked between the two of them, and Francesca could see the pieces of the puzzle forming in her mind. "This is the woman Richard told me about?" "Richard told you about me?" Francesca asked. "My assistant has been worried about certain distractions in my life lately," Alexander explained, giving a warning look to his mother. "I see," Alexander's mother said, and her tone became noticeably colder. "Miss Davies," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "Miss Davies, I wonder if we could speak in private." "Mom, no." Alexander tried to sit up, but Francesca gently pushed him back onto the pillow. "It's okay," Francesca said, looking directly at Alexander's mother. "We can talk." They went out into the hallway, and the older woman immediately approached Francesca with the precision of a laser. "How much?" she asked without preamble. "I'm sorry? How much money do you want to disappear from my son's life?" Francesca felt as if she had been slapped. "Excuse me? Look, Miss Davies, I'm not going to pretend I don't know what's happening here. You're an attractive, working-class woman who somehow managed to capture my son's attention, but we both know this is temporary. Do we? Of course. Alexander has had these phases before. They usually last a few weeks, a couple of months at most. Then he returns to reality and realizes he needs someone from his own social level. Mrs. Vance, with all due respect, call me Valentina. And let me be clear, I have nothing personal against you. I'm sure you're a lovely person, but my son is going to inherit an empire that has taken generations to build. He needs a wife who can navigate our world, who understands the responsibilities that come with our position. And you think I can't do that? Can you, Francesca? Can you handle dinners with ambassadors and corporate presidents? Can you represent our family at charity events where millions are raised? Can you make decisions that affect the jobs of 50,000 employees? Francesca was silent, because she honestly didn't know if she could do any of those things. I see you understand my point, Valentina continued. So I ask you again, how much? I don't want your money, Francesca said finally. Everyone wants our money, dear. It's just a matter of finding the right amount. Not everyone, Francesca replied, straightening her shoulders. And definitely not me. Because unlike what you think, I'm not with Alexander for his money. I didn't even know who he really was until 3 days ago. Seriously? For the first time, Valentina seemed genuinely surprised. Seriously? And you know what else? You're right about one thing. I don't know if I can navigate your world. I don't know if I can handle dinners with ambassadors or make decisions that affect thousands of people. But I do know that I love your son. I love him with all my heart. And he loves me. Love is not enough, dear. Not when it comes to responsibilities of this magnitude. Francesca looked at this woman, seeing in her a version of what Alexander could become if he continued to live only for the expectations of others instead of for his own happiness. You know what's the saddest thing about all this? Francesca asked. What? That you are so focused on protecting your empire that you have forgotten to protect your son's happiness. His happiness is my priority. No, ma'am. His conformity is your priority. His happiness would be for him to find someone who loves him for who he is, not for what he has. And you think that someone is you? I don't know, Francesca admitted, but I would like the opportunity to find out. At that moment, a nurse came out of Alexander's room. Excuse me, but the patient is asking for Francesca. Francesca looked at Valentina one last time. Your son just had an accident that could have cost him his life. Maybe this isn't the time to discuss family politics. When they returned to the room, Alexander looked at both of them, clearly aware that they had had a difficult conversation. Everything okay? He asked. Everything's fine, Francesca replied, taking his hand. Alexander, Valentina said, we need to talk about the board meeting tomorrow. Mom, I'm in a hospital. Business doesn't stop because you have a little accident. It wasn't a little accident, Francesca interrupted. He has a concussion and broken ribs. Miss Davies, this is a family matter. Francesca is important to me, Alexander said firmly. What affects me affects her. Valentina looked between her son and Francesca, and for a moment her mask of perfect control cracked slightly. Very well, she finally said. But we have to discuss some important things tomorrow, Alexander. Tomorrow, he agreed. After his mother left, Alexander looked at Francesca with an expression she couldn't interpret. What did she say? He asked. Nothing I didn't expect, Francesca replied. Did she offer you money? Yes. And I told her that not everyone has a price. Alexander closed his eyes, smiling slightly. I love you. I love you too, Francesca replied, and she realized it was the first time she had said it directly. Seriously? Seriously. I realized it when I saw you on that gurney. I realized that nothing else matters. Not the money, not the social differences, not what your mother thinks. And the last 3 days I was scared. Scared of not being enough for you. Scared of not being able to handle your world. Scared that this was all too good to be true. And now I know I want to try. I want to fight for us, even if it means dealing with my mother, with the press, with all the complications that come with my life. Especially because of that, Alexander said. Because someone has to remind you that you are more than your money and your last name. Alexander took her hand and kissed it softly. You know you're extraordinary? You keep telling me that. Because it's true. And because after today, after seeing how you defended us in front of my mother, after seeing how you cared for me when I was vulnerable, I know I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Alexander, I know this is fast. I know we've only been getting to know each other for 2 weeks, but almost dying today made me realize that I don't want to waste a single day without you. What are you saying? I'm saying that when I get out of this hospital, I want you to meet my world. I want to take you to events, introduce you to my social circle, show you exactly what it means to be with me. Are you sure? More sure than I've ever been about anything in my life. And if I don't fit in, then we'll change the rules until you do. That night, Francesca stayed at the hospital, sleeping in the chair beside Alexander's bed. It wasn't comfortable, but there was no other place in the world she would have rather been. And for the first time since she had discovered who Alexander really was, she felt ready to face whatever came next, because she had learned something important. True love isn't about fitting into someone else's world. It's about creating a new world together. 2 weeks after the accident, Alexander had returned to work, although Francesca insisted he still needed more rest. It was Friday night when he arrived at her apartment with an elegant box in his hands and an expression that mixed excitement with nervousness. "What's that?" Francesca asked, drying her hands after doing the dishes from the dinner they had cooked together. "Your official entry into my world," Alexander replied, placing the box on the small table in her living room. "Tomorrow night is the annual Vance Industries charity ball. It's the most important social event of the year, and I want you to come with me." Francesca felt a knot in her stomach. A charity ball? Yes. It raises funds for children's hospitals across the country. This year we hope to raise over $5 million. Alexander, I don't know if I'm ready for something like that. That's why I brought this, he said, gesturing to the box. Open it. Francesca lifted the lid with trembling hands and gasped. Inside was a midnight blue evening gown, so beautiful it seemed to be made of liquid moonlight. The fabric was as soft as silk, but shimmered subtly, and the cut was elegant without being revealing. Alexander, this must have cost a fortune. It doesn't matter what it cost. What matters is how you'll look in it. I can't accept this. Why not? Because this is too much. This is the kind of dress princesses and Hollywood actresses wear. And now the most beautiful woman I know is going to wear it. Francesca touched the fabric delicately, as if it would disintegrate under her fingers. What if I do something wrong? What if I say something inappropriate? What if I embarrass your family? Alexander came closer and took her hands. Francesca, look at me. She looked up into his eyes. You're not going to embarrass anyone. You're intelligent, compassionate, beautiful, and you have more natural grace than most of the women born into this world. But what if your mother is right? What if I don't belong in your world? Then it will be my world's problem, not yours. On the night of the ball, Francesca stood in front of the full-length mirror in her bedroom, barely recognizing herself. The dress fit her perfectly, as if it had been made specifically for her. Her hair was styled in an elegant low bun, and she wore a simple pearl necklace that had belonged to her mother. Lucy was sitting on the bed, watching her with admiration. Francesca, you look like a princess. I feel like I'm in a costume. That's because you've never seen yourself like this before. But this is you, sis. Just a more elegant version. The doorbell rang, and Francesca felt her heart stop. Breathe, Lucy said. You'll be fine. When Francesca opened the door, Alexander froze completely. He was wearing a black tuxedo that made him look like something out of a movie, but the expression on his face when he saw her was of pure astonishment. You're absolutely stunning, he murmured. Is it too much? It's perfect. You're perfect. The drive to the hotel where the event was being held was silent, both lost in their own thoughts. Francesca looked out the window, watching the city gradually change from her familiar neighborhood to the more exclusive areas, where the mansions grew larger and the cars more expensive. "Alexander," she said when they stopped at a traffic light. "Yes? How many people are going to be there?" "Around 300. And are they all going to know who I am?" "Probably. My personal life isn't exactly private. Is there anything I should know? Any special protocols?" "Just be yourself. That's all you need to be." When they arrived at the Grand Imperial Hotel, Francesca gasped. The entrance was carpeted in red, with photographers everywhere, and elegant cars dropping off couples dressed as if they were going to meet royalty. "Ready?" Alexander asked, offering her his arm. "No," Francesca admitted, "but let's go anyway." The moment they stepped out of the car, the flashes began. Francesca clung to Alexander's arm, feeling as if she were in a surreal dream. "Mr. Vance, over here." "Alexander, who is your companion?" "A photo for society and glamour." Alexander navigated the photographers with practiced professionalism, stopping for a few photos, but keeping Francesca close and protected. "Is it always like this?" Francesca whispered. "This is relatively quiet," he replied. When they entered the ballroom, Francesca felt like she had entered another world. The ceiling was decorated with thousands of lights that looked like stars. There were floral arrangements that probably cost more than her monthly salary. And the people looked like they had stepped out of the pages of high society magazines. "Alexander, darling," an older woman in a golden dress approached them. "So good to see you recovered from the accident. Mrs. Vance, let me introduce you to Francesca Davies. Francesca, this is Mrs. Vance, one of the foundation's main sponsors." "It's a pleasure," Francesca said, offering her hand. "The pleasure is all mine, dear. And what do you do?" "I'm a nurse at the Community General Hospital." "What a noble profession," Mrs. Vance said, sounding genuinely impressed. "My younger sister's a nurse too. It's such important work." Over the next hour, Alexander introduced her to what seemed like hundreds of people. Senators, businessmen, ambassadors, celebrities. Francesca began to relax when she realized that most people were genuinely kind, even curious about her work at the hospital. But then Isabella Montgomery appeared. Francesca recognized her immediately from the photos she had seen in society magazines. She was exactly as she expected. Tall, slender, with the kind of classic beauty that seemed made for designer dresses and expensive jewelry. Her red dress was probably more expensive than Francesca's car. "Alexander," Isabella said, approaching with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "What a surprise to see you here with company." "Isabella," Alexander replied cordially, but without warmth. "I'd like you to meet Francesca Davies." "Francesca?" "Isabella Montgomery." "Ah," Isabella said, looking Francesca up and down. "The famous nurse." "Famous?" Francesca asked. "Darling, everyone is talking about you. The common girl who captured the heart of the city's most eligible bachelor." "Isabella," Alexander said in a warning tone. "What? I'm just being friendly," Isabella smiled. "Francesca, you must tell me your secret. How do you manage to keep Alexander's attention? Because let's be honest, his track record with, shall we say, women from different backgrounds isn't exactly long-lasting." Francesca felt as if she had been slapped, but before she could reply, a familiar voice spoke from behind her. "Trouble here?" It was Valentina, Alexander's mother, who approached with the grace of a queen and the sharp gaze of an eagle. "Mrs. Vance," Isabella smiled. "I was just getting to know Alexander's new friend." "I see," Valentina replied. "Isabella, dear, shouldn't you be with your husband? I believe I saw him near the bar." "My husband can wait," Isabella replied, but there was an edge in her voice. "I'm sure he can, but I'm equally sure he has better things to do than to bother my son's guests." The exchange was subtle, but lethal. Isabella retreated with a forced smile, but not before giving Francesca a look that promised this wasn't over. "Thank you," Francesca murmured to Alexander's mother. "Don't thank me yet," Valentina replied. "Can we talk?" Alexander began to protest, but his mother raised a hand. "It's time for your girlfriend and I to have a proper conversation." They went to a private terrace that overlooked the hotel gardens. The view was spectacular, but Francesca barely noticed it. "Miss Davies," Valentina began, "please call me Francesca." "Francesca, then I must apologize for my behavior at the hospital." Francesca blinked in surprise. Apologize? Yes. I was scared. My son had been in a serious accident. And when I saw him so worried about you, when I saw how you took care of him, I realized this was more serious than I had thought. And that's a bad thing? Not necessarily, but it does mean that I need to get to know you better. What do you want to know? I want to know if you really love my son, or if you are overwhelmed by all of this, and are here out of obligation. Francesca thought carefully before answering. Valentina, I'm not going to lie to you. This is overwhelming. Tonight, these people, this world, it's completely foreign to everything I know, and despite that, there is nowhere else I would rather be. Because this is where Alexander is, even if it means dealing with people like Isabella. Especially if it means dealing with people like Isabella. Why? Because Alexander deserves someone who will fight for him. He deserves someone who won't be intimidated by his past or by the expectations of others. Valentina studied Francesca for a long moment. Do you know what surprises me most about you? What? That you're not trying to impress me. You should be. Most women who have wanted to be with my son have spent hours trying to convince me they would be perfect for him. And I'm not doing that? No. You are being honest about your limitations, but you are also being firm about your feelings. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's refreshing. At that moment, Alexander appeared on the terrace. Everything okay here? Everything is fine, Valentina replied. Francesca and I were having a very illuminating conversation. Mom? Yes, son. Can I dance with my girlfriend now? Of course. But first, Francesca, one more question. Yes? Are you prepared for your life to change completely? Francesca looked at Alexander, seeing the love in his eyes, the fear that she might decide that all this was too much, the hope that she would choose to stay despite the complications. It already changed, she replied. The day I met him, it changed forever, and I don't regret it for a second. Then, Valentina smiled for the first time since Francesca had known her. Welcome to the family. As Alexander led Francesca back to the ballroom, she felt as if she had passed some kind of important test. What did she say? He asked. That she welcomed me into the family. Seriously? Seriously? And how do you feel about that? Like I survived the first battle of a very long war. But are you willing to fight that war for me? I would fight any war for you, Francesca replied, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him softly. At that moment, as they danced in the center of the city's most elegant ballroom, surrounded by high society, with photographers capturing every moment, Francesca realized that she had found exactly where she belonged, in the arms of the man she loved, no matter what world surrounded them. But she also realized that the night was just beginning, and that Isabella Montgomery was watching her from the other side of the room, with an expression that promised the real challenges were yet to come. 6 months after the charity ball, Francesca's life had changed in ways she never imagined possible. She no longer lived in her small apartment. Alexander had insisted that she move into a beautiful house he had bought specifically for her, close enough to the hospital so she could continue working, but elegant enough that she would feel comfortable entertaining his family and friends. But this Saturday morning, everything was about to change again. Francesca was at Community General Hospital, not as an employee, but as a visitor. She had come to see Tommy, the boy whose broken bike had been the catalyst for her love story with Alexander. The little one had been admitted with a serious infection that had worried his whole family. "Miss Francesca!" Tommy shouted excitedly when he saw her enter his room. "You came to see me?" "Of course I did." Francesca smiled, sitting in the chair next to his bed. "How are you feeling?" "Better. The doctors say I can go home tomorrow." "That's such good news. And is Mr. Alexander coming too?" "Of course he is. In fact, he's on his way." At that moment, Tommy's grandmother came in with tears in her eyes. "Miss Francesca, thank you for coming and thank you for everything you've done for us." Over the past few months, Alexander and Francesca had been discreetly helping Tommy's family. They had paid for a surgery the grandmother needed. They had found a better apartment for them, and they had set up an educational fund for Tommy. "You don't need to thank us," Francesca replied. "Tommy is special to us." "Miss Francesca," Tommy asked, with the seriousness that children sometimes show. "Yes? Are you and Mr. Alexander going to get married?" Francesca felt her heart race. It was a question that had been on her mind for weeks, especially since Alexander had been acting mysterious lately. canceling meetings to spend time with her, asking her strange questions about her dreams for the future. Why do you ask that? Because you look like the people in the movies when they're in love. And what does that look like? Like you're happy all the time when you're together. Before Francesca could answer, Alexander appeared in the doorway of the room, but he wasn't alone. Behind him came Lucy, Martha from the hospital, Richard his assistant, and even Valentina, his mother. "What's going on?" Francesca asked, confused. "Tommy," Alexander said, walking up to the boy's bed. "Do you remember what we talked about on the phone yesterday?" "Yes," Tommy shouted excitedly. "It's time! It's time!" Alexander turned to Francesca, and she saw that there were tears in his eyes. Slowly, he knelt down next to the chair where she was sitting. "Francesca," he began, and his voice trembled slightly. 8 months ago, my life had no real purpose. I had money, success, everything that's supposed to make a person happy, but I was empty inside. Francesca felt tears forming in her eyes as she realized what was happening. Then, a little boy of 6 taught me about selfless kindness, and his older sister taught me about true love. "Alexander, wait. Let me finish," he said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Over these months, you have transformed not only my life but my soul. You have taught me that true wealth is not measured in money, but in the moments we share, in the laughter we create together, in the way you care for everyone around you." "Open it! Open it!" Tommy shouted from the bed, and everyone in the room laughed. Alexander opened the box, revealing a ring that was absolutely perfect, elegant but not ostentatious, with a diamond surrounded by small blue stones that matched the exact color of her eyes. "Francesca Davies," Alexander said, his voice now firm and full of love. "Will you do me the honor of being my wife?" The room went completely silent. Francesca looked around, seeing the hopeful faces of all the people she loved. Lucy with tears streaming down her cheeks, Martha silently clapping, Tommy's grandmother smiling broadly. Even Valentina seemed emotional. "But there's something else," Alexander continued. "I don't just want you to be my wife. I want you to be my partner in something bigger." "What do you mean?" "I want us to build the Francesca Davies Foundation for families in need. A foundation that helps families like Tommy's, that provides free medical care, education, housing, everything they need to have a better life." Francesca gasped. "A foundation with my name? With your name? With your vision? With your heart? Because you taught me that the purpose of having resources is to help others." "And we're going to help a lot of families?" Tommy asked excitedly. "As many families as we can," Alexander promised, without taking his eyes off Francesca. "Yes," Francesca whispered, tears streaming freely down her face. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Alexander stood up and kissed her as everyone in the room clapped and cheered for joy. Tommy clapped from his bed. Lucy sobbed happily, and even Valentina discreetly wiped her eyes. "Wait!" Tommy suddenly shouted. "I have something to say." Everyone turned to him. "Miss Francesca, when you fixed my bike that day, my grandma told me you were an angel. And now that you're going to marry Mr. Alexander, you're going to be the richest angels in the world, helping people like us." "We're not angels," Francesca laughed, walking over to hug the boy. "We're just people who learned that happiness multiplies when you share it." 2 hours later, when the excitement at the hospital had calmed down a bit, Alexander and Francesca walked through the same park where they had met. The ring on her finger sparkled under the afternoon sun, but what shone brightest was the happiness on their faces. "You know what's the most incredible thing about all this?" Francesca asked, as they sat on the bench where they had had so many important conversations. "What?" "That it all started because a boy needed help with his bike, and because an extraordinary woman couldn't just walk by without helping." "Are you really going to create a foundation with my name on it?" "It's already created," Alexander smiled. "The papers were signed yesterday. The Francesca Davies Foundation has an initial budget of 100 million. 100 million? Francesca felt a little dizzy. "That's just the beginning. Every year we're going to dedicate more resources. We're going to build hospitals, schools, community centers. We're going to make sure no family has to choose between food and medicine. And I'm going to help run all that. You're going to run all that. I'm just going to provide the resources." Francesca looked at this extraordinary man who had appeared in her life and transformed it in ways she had never dreamed possible. You know what scares me the most about all this? She asked. What? That it's too perfect. That something is going to go wrong. You know what I've learned in these months? Alexander replied. What? That when something is meant to be, the universe conspires to make it happen. And we, Francesca, were meant to be. How are you so sure? Because out of all the people in this city, all the places you could have been that day, all the moments Tommy could have needed help, you were exactly where you needed to be, exactly when I needed to find you. You believe in destiny? I do now. I believe everything I went through before, all the loneliness, all the emptiness, was necessary so that I could fully appreciate the gift you are in my life. They sat in silence for a moment, watching other families play in the park, children running, couples walking, normal, beautiful life unfolding around them. Alexander? Yes? When do you want to get married? How about in 6 months? That will give us time to plan the wedding of your dreams. I'm already living the life of my dreams, Francesca replied. The wedding can be simple. Nothing about our love is simple, Alexander laughed. But it can be authentic. You know where I want to get married? Where? Here, in this park, where it all began. Seriously? Seriously. I want Tommy to be our ring bearer. I want his grandmother to be there. I want all the families we're going to help through the foundation to see that fairy tales can be real. And after the wedding? After the wedding, we're going to change the world, one family at a time. I love you, Alexander, she said, kissing him softly. I love you more, Alexander replied. Impossible. As they walked back to the car, Francesca realized she had learned the most important lesson of all, that true love not only changes your life, it gives you the power to change the lives of others, and that sometimes the biggest miracles begin with the simplest gestures, like helping a boy with his broken bike, like listening when someone asks for help, like choosing love over fear, like believing that the happy ending isn't the end of the story, but the beginning of something even more beautiful.